What is up, guys, and welcome back to the channel, guys. We here with a special one, guys. Back with my guy Steven. I think it's pronounced Steven. I hope I don't get it wrong. I mean, it's been a minute since I did one of his videos, but we have 5 fascinating differences between Swedish and Danish cultures. These are 2 countries I definitely do a lot of content over, learn about, Scandinavia and all. It's kind of been a minute. I haven't done all of Scandinavia in a couple of weeks, probably a couple of months, but I have been doing Sweden. So, and I seen this video, I had to check it out, see what it's about. So y'all hit that subscribe button. Hey, let's jump into it.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. We have a guest back by popular demand.
Yes.
Will is back, been on a
Will.
few times.
It's been a while.
It has been a while. I think last time you were on, you were living in Sweden.
Yes.
You'd previously lived in Denmark.
Yes.
I have not lived in Denmark, but I have been.
Okay.
And I've been in Sweden now for a long time. And I thought, what a great chance to compare some differences between Sweden and Denmark, especially having you on as you've lived in both countries.
Yes. Yes. There is a big difference between the two. I know for people that are outside, I think, especially probably Americans as well, you kind of see Scandinavia as just like Sweden,
Yeah.
Denmark, that's the same.
Yeah.
Sweden, Denmark, Norway, it's one place. There's a fantastic number of differences between them, but you really do need to be there to get that.
Exactly. And as a whole, I think Sweden, Denmark, Norway, they have so much in common. And what we're going to talk about in this video are like little particular differences that might set them apart from each other, but like as Americans, or maybe if we were coming from a completely different part of the world, we'd be like, wow, there's way more commonalities than differences. So maybe good to preface that first before we dive into these things.
Yeah.
But I think the first difference we can start with is just the language. There are similarities, like we're saying. I mean, Swedish people and Danish people, they're like on the edge of being able to communicate, I feel like.
Yeah.
And you learned Danish first.
Yes.
Nice.
And we actually made a video on my channel where you were speaking Danish before you learned Swedish.
Yeah.
Oh, have I? I don't think I ever seen that video.
And we actually made a video on my channel where you were speaking.
Let me see. I need to check this out. Oh, they did a video like this before. Oh, 2 years ago. Wow.
Danish before
but
you
what's
learned
the difference
Swedish.
now?
Yeah.
And I was speaking Swedish, and we could still sort of communicate.
Yeah. It was weird. It's totally weird because you can, with context, it will help.
Dang, I'm kind of in the way, and I would just, I don't mind. Let me click off a little bit. Let me see where I'm in. There you go. Boom, I'm back. Yeah, that's definitely interesting. I mean, of course, I can watch the whole video. Swedish jags. Tackle on vin, jag kan kort lit vin. Oh, that's interesting.
Help out a whole lot. But yeah, you can understand. The biggest thing that was funny to me is when I knowing that you could be kind of, it was kind of mutually intelligible, I came here thinking that the Swedes would be like up in arms, like, oh, it'd be great. You're an American guy, but you're speaking Danish.
Yeah.
The first few conversations, they were like, varför pratar du danska? Like, why are you, what is that? It sounds, ugh. They would all go, ugh. It sounds so, ugh. Because I mean, for those of you guys that don't know, obviously Danish has a bit of a rougher, different, guttural sound to it, which the Swedes kind of make fun of a little bit,
And I've heard that it's easier for...
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, both Norway and Sweden said that Danish sound like they're choking on a potato or something like that.
Danes to understand Swedish people than for Swedish people to understand Danish people.
Yeah.
And I know out of the Scandinavian languages, Norwegian for me is much easier to understand than Danish. So maybe it's easier for a Danish person to be like, oh, I'm going to speak Danish. We understand each other. But the Swedes are like, wait, what? Because they have the harder time. But it's interesting, too. I have a salesperson at work. We've just started running campaigns in Norway. And we would get leads, sports directors and stuff coming in Norway. He would send an email in Swedish, no response. Send an email in English, no response.
Wow.
Then on the third email, I'm like, dude, they're Norwegians. Maybe try writing to them in Norwegian and make a joke about, oh, I tried in the other. So I wrote to you in Swedish and then English. You didn't respond, so I thought I'd try one last time in Norwegian. Sure enough, people started responding. Of course. So people like to speak their own language, even if we can sort of understand.
Yeah. No, there's nothing will ever change the fact that it's, once you can hear something in your own mother tongue from someone who is not from there or whatever it is, it's just, there's something about home, that home feeling that you get, when you hear somebody. So For sure.
The second difference I think is very, very interesting, and I'm curious at how much you've noticed this living in Denmark. This is the difference in communication styles between being more non-confrontational versus being direct. And you've lived in both countries. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I'm gonna even throw in another thing here. So I've also played in Finland, which is another Scandinavian country, which has a very nice stark line in between the differences, also language-wise, but between Finland, Denmark, Sweden, and Norway. But it does appear that the Danes are a bit more direct, and this you can see this no more in sports, obviously, in the field that I'm in, where guys.
I can't remember that he was a soccer or football player, I believe. But I mean, I feel like with Europe, I heard. I mean, of course, compared to America, it's just directness in general from all countries. But that's interesting. Denmark, that's interesting.
Guys are going to tell you what's up, how to do it. In Sweden, on the field, it's a bit more. It's a bit more team. Not that there's not that, and I noticed that in organization or in organizations also. It's just everybody's we're kind of like we'll let it slide. We won't do things. In Denmark, really, when things got to a point, someone's shouting. If you guys, anyone, and people can Google this, you can throw this guy up. But Stig Tofting was my coach. He's an assistant coach. This guy is a bull of just telling you how life is and what it is.
Yeah.
You throw up a picture of this guy, you guys will all get it when you see him. Yeah. But I don't know what you've seen.
I ain't gonna lie, he do look like he'd say a few words to you.
For me, it's really interesting because
No
Swedish people, they don't want to rock the boat. They're very polite, and if they do have a problem with you, oftentimes if you're a foreigner, you won't even realize that they have a problem with you. There was, I've been in situations where are they mad at me or something?
Yeah.
I wasn't even sure. I was like, why don't they just tell me what's upsetting them? Because I have no idea what I did. Versus I think in a lot of countries, Germany, for example, very, very direct.
No
if
problem.
a German has a problem with you, they will tell you straight up. And it might even be off-putting for some people that aren't used to that culture. Maybe, I don't know where Denmark falls on that spectrum, but maybe not as extreme as the Germans, I would imagine, but way more direct than what you would experience in Sweden.
Totally. I mean, if we throw Germany in the mix now, that's another language that I speak quite well and that I've spent some time in. Yeah, they're way more direct. And it's actually kind of cool once you get used to it, just along with the language as well, because you get that information.
Yeah.
And as long as you realize it's a different culture, things are different here, this is how they do it, then it's kind of nice.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, now I know what's up. In Sweden, too, not that you won't find, obviously, we're not classifying an entire nation like this. This is just a general cultural thing, and more or less so in the city, right? In Stockholm, maybe.
My guy, Will is it? Man, I need to see who he play for and stuff. I need to see more information about him. I didn't know. I think I seen in the last video that he said he did play soccer, what I call soccer, football, and I didn't know he speak that many languages. That's interesting.
In some of the outskirts, things could be different. I don't know. Have you tested that?
I mean, I get a lot of comments on the channel that I'm generalizing and your experience is heavily based in Stockholm.
Yeah.
And that is of course true. I live in Stockholm, but I have lived in Norrköping. I have been to the north of Sweden, the west coast. I've been around the country. And when you do get to other parts of the country, there are regional differences, of course.
Sure.
But this is just an overarching sort of generalization of what I've seen.
Okay.
And
I would agree.
Experience,
the next
for sure.
one, I think, has a lot to do with the laws of the country as well. And this is going to be differences in the alcohol culture.
He said,
For one thing, in
cheers.
Sweden, you have Systembolaget, so you can't buy alcohol at grocery stores and shops, which you can do in Denmark. And then also in Denmark, they don't have a law against open container. So you can go to a grocery store, buy a beer, and walk around the street and drink a beer. It's completely legal in Denmark versus in Sweden. That is not legal. Sometimes you'll see fans going to soccer games and stuff, and they're holding their beer, and the cops can't be bothered to pull them over. But technically in Sweden, that is illegal, and they could pull you over and make a deal out of it if they wanted to.
So I'm going to give you an anecdote from the very first, more or less, few months that I was in Denmark. So Denmark, and they have this, their grocery store, Føtex. And it's this place. I was there. I was standing in line. In front of me were two girls buying some alcohol. And as I got a closer look, as I was putting my food on the the little tray there or whatever, I looked closer and I'm like, how old are these girls? These girls, they might have been, in my head, they were 14.
Yeah.
Right?
I think Isn't it like 17 or 18? One of these countries, this is, I mean, to me is young. I mean, to us is young because, you know, the legal drinking age here in America is 21. But I think one of these is like 17 or 18, or as long as the adult is around, they can drink.
I think they were 15. They're buying hard vodka and
They
beer.
didn't get ID'd or anything.
I don't think they got ID'd. Now, I can't remember, but I just remember thinking the very
15?
next thing that I did
Yeah.
was like, what is the drinking age
Yeah.
in Denmark? And I think it was 15. This is 2008, so I'm not 100% sure if I'm
Yeah.
remembering things right. In any case, they were way younger than.
Dang. And this is from 2021. Denmark. Oh, my fault. Hold up. Let me get out y'all way real quick. Boom. You can kind of pause it a little after, you know. There you go. 16. I did not know that. Dang. How many times? 400. I mean, if we being honest, I mean, me personally, I don't drink and I never drunk. But I knew some people that was doing this before the legal age here in America, you know, so it's common, you know. But this is like when you can go to the store or go to a restaurant and casually drink type of thing. But, you know, I mean, teenagers be doing this anyway. You know, they just happy to post it when they're doing it when they turn 21 here. 16, that's interesting.
And
Yeah.
21, which what you do in the U.S.
Yeah, in Sweden it's 18 to drink at a bar and 20 to buy from the liquor store, basically. But I think in Denmark it's 16. I know in Germany it's 16.
All right, so it might have been 15, 16.
Yeah, but sometimes in these like Germany and Denmark they don't ID you.
I don't think she said anything. It was just, you get your stuff. I'm thinking
that the same
how
with
different
cigarettes?
these cultures are
Yeah.
compared to the U.S. Like how because 15, 16, all these kids also in the U.S. Some of them are drinking.
Yeah.
They are,
Yeah.
but they can't just go to the store.
Yeah.
That's kind of why, and I'm going to throw this in there too. It may be part of the reason why America has a hard time with the drinking culture. Some kids, a lot of the college, they go through a poor period of having to do it because they have to hide it.
Yeah, exactly.
They can't
Hide
just go drink and their parents can't say, hey, slow down, have a little relax. Like, I know you're 15, this is the greatest thing ever. But like, so I don't know. I mean, that could probably get a little debate down in the comment section. But I would want to know. I think that could be an issue.
That is interesting.
Yeah, I mean they're more open about it. It's just not a big deal in some countries. Like when I was 16 in Germany, I remember I was at a festival and I ordered a beer at the festival, and the guy pouring the beer was like, "You're 16, right?" and winked at me, and I'm like, "No, I'm actually 16. You can see my ID if you want." But like to him, it made no difference. It was just like beer's part of the culture here, and whatever. Here you go. Like they weren't stressed about it. Whereas here, it's like 28 years old, I still get ID'd every time I go to the liquor store in Sweden.
Great.
They don't even need to ask me. I just have the card sitting there waiting because I know I'm going to get it. This baby face, you know, it's going to happen. This kind of, I think, can parlay into the next point that I think is different. And this is the spontaneity versus planning well in advance. And from what I've gathered and researched and sort of seen is that Danish people seem to be a bit more spontaneous. I know in Sweden, for example, people are so busy, especially in Stockholm, that they got to plan weeks in advance. If you want to see a friend, oh, what are you doing Wednesday in 2 weeks, 3 weeks? People book their calendars well in advance. When I was in Spain for a few months last winter, it was completely the opposite. People would text you like 8 o'clock, hey, you got dinner plans? Because they eat it like 10 o'clock.
I know, it's crazy.
Just the level of difference.
That's a huge difference.
How did you see that in Denmark?
You know what? I tend to agree with this. It seemed like in Sweden that, you do have to have things at least a bit more structured. A bit more structured. And that the Danes were a little bit more up for that, like, let's go, let's do this. Not that you can't find it, but it did seem like that. And
I ain't gonna lie. Sometimes structure is good because, you know, people be busy, people be tired. Sometimes I ain't gonna lie. Sometimes I'm like the Spain and the Denmark, where I'm like, I do stuff once I hear it that day. Yeah, I can do it, or no, I can't. But most times I'll be like, man, I really need to have my day planned out like Sweden, like the Swedish, because sometimes I'll be saying yes to like 3 or 4 people at 4 o'clock, knowing I can't be at 3 or 4 places at the same time. So.
And I'm referring to because one of my favorite
I
series
feel
of all time is It's called Clone. I've talked about it. I think I even talked about it in our very first one. There's these guys, Frank Vam, Kasper Christensen, and you'll see that their Danish humor, it relies a whole lot also on this spontaneity, on them doing these crazy types of things, and it's a good representation of their culture to some degree, obviously. And I found that. So I like both. It's weird because for me as a person, I feel like I fall on both ends. I live a life that has to be very structured to do all the things that I want to do, but at the same time, because I'm doing so many things that are in different aspects of the spectrum, football, soccer, football or in language and business and all these things. You got to be a little bit ready to just, all right, guys, we're going to Sweden, which like later tonight, I fly to Copenhagen, and it's part of the thing. And then you got training next. It's just, so I like all of it. I like the structure, and I like them both. So
I could definitely understand that being a professional athlete and stuff. You definitely got to be structured and really have your stuff planned out. But like he said, sometimes you might get hit with hey, you want to come do a commercial? Hey, you want to come? Of course, with certain things, you're not going to say no to them. Sometimes you can push things back and stuff. The time management is serious, man. I definitely struggled with it, but I started getting better at it, started utilizing my time, so I can help my sleep schedule and all those things.
That's why I feel at home in both countries.
The last difference that I think is really, really interesting has to do with the hierarchical structure of the organizations. In Sweden, you have this sort of flat organizational structure where you don't have like the boss talking down to the employees, this is what you do, this is what you do. It's sort of like everyone sits around the table and shares their thoughts regardless of what your position is in the company. I've really got this sense for how the company culture works in Sweden. I think Denmark might be a little bit more similar to the US, for example, where you have like these really defined roles, at least from what I've read about. How was that? Did you notice this at all?
Yeah, so I'll start with Sweden because I do definitely agree. There's the tendency not to want to stand out. I think they have a word for it. I always forget it.
Yeah, jantelagen.
Jantelagen. That's right. Yeah, and there's this tendency to not rock the boat, especially within an organization. We all kind of do our thing, and if you're seen as it's not that you can't rock the boat. It's not that you can't, but you're seen as the guy. Yeah. You're the guy, or you're the two people that are always doing that, and now we've put you in a little group. Whereas in Denmark, it was more accepted to kind of be that little rebel in that sense. But as far as the organization, I've done a lot of work with Danish companies. It does seem like they have a more hierarchical. I'm the boss. This guy's below me. Then this, and then this. I know who's in charge like that.
It's interesting because jantelagen, I think, is a Scandinavian concept. So I think it was actually rooted in a town in Denmark. I might be wrong. I'll probably get some people in the comment section I was from here.
You're an idiot.
But it's interesting that despite jantelagen, I think this sort of, I've made lots of videos about jantelagen before, but I think that there is some sort of, even in Denmark, where people don't want to stand out as much compared to, say, the U.S. or other parts of the world.
That's not even,
So I think there are some similarities in that regard, but in terms of, like, corporate structure, it's weird. It's like it's sort of hard. I can't put my finger exactly on the difference, but
it's a nitpick. We're nitpicking because we're having to choose between Sweden and Denmark. I mean, if we're talking about the U.S. and how everybody's supposed to, whatever's whatever. You want to have part of my hair pink and this one purple and want to stand out and want to say I'm the boss or I'm the king, come up with some crazy title. That's all over there. It's the norm.
So with that, guys, I'm curious about these 5 points that we made, especially this last one. If you want to insert your own comments and thoughts, I'm definitely going to be looking through the comments of this video. We appreciate you guys watching. If you want to see some videos that Will and I did together, you should go over and check out his language channel. I'll link that in the description below.
I'm going to have to check that out.
Last time you were here, you didn't have the language channel. We're already up to what, 50K subscribers?
50K out of nowhere, just blowing up. It's just, if you guys like languages, if you like conversations and, crazy things and in different languages and street interviews and Omegle chats and all this stuff like that, you'll enjoy it. So check it out.
Exactly. And be sure to check out the other videos where we're speaking Swedish and Danish on this channel. If you would like, I'll link those somewhere. Either, you'll see it.
This was good. I guess we would go back to like the geography now. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, geography now, Sweden was like, out of all Scandinavia, Sweden like that big brother, more structured, do things, in decency and order. And no way, Denmark, they're like, the little brother, little sister type thing, little brothers or whichever you want to call it. Not always going by the rules, kind of doing the things their way. I hope the work culture is definitely not like the U.S. because sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes that's a bad thing, depending on where you work and stuff. But these differences were very interesting, very interesting. I've had checked out things knowing the differences when it comes to the language barriers and stuff like that. Because if I'm not mistaken, I remember videos saying, and I've said this earlier, that Denmark, it sounded like they're choking on potatoes, eating potatoes or something like that, which was funny. It was hilarious. But all in all, I still mess with Scandinavia. I just can't wait to experience these differences myself, man. I got my calendars marked. I'm ready for that day, for it to come, because it's coming. But definitely enjoy this, man. Y'all got to make sure y'all subscribe to these two. I'm finna go find Will, man. I'm finna go check out his language channel, man. Follow his journey and stuff like that. But definitely enjoy this. So y'all hit that subscribe button, send down those recommendations, and y'all be blessed, be the best, and be you. I'm out.